And okay, and then as soon as that, Chris. Okay. Okay, well, welcome and bienvenue to another weekly Hack Night online. I'm Morgan. I organize the San Francisco chapter, and yeah, great to have you here tonight. So we've still got a few people trickling in, and I noticed that we've got at least one new person here. So usually we give people, especially if it's their first time, a chance to introduce themselves. And there is no obligation to do so. But yeah, so there's lots of things that we're going to definitely talk about. Want to make sure, I believe today, I think this is right, is the last chance to apply for NeuroMatch Academy. So this summer, it's like 3 weeks in June, July. I think it's like end of July, early August. So 3 weeks of computational neuroscience, and being run out of University of Pennsylvania. So Conrad Cording is organizing this. This is after the NeuroMatch unconference that was, I believe, in March, and they kind of wanted to use all the experience that they got from running such a large event. I think it was like several thousand people. They actually, Conrad wrote a Medium post on afterwards on how to manage Zoom bombing when you've got like 2,000 people, which seem relevant. Anyway, so I'm signing up. I don't know what role, but it looks like a really great. I mean, I certainly love his work. It is kind of focused on computational neuroscience and not so much neuroimaging, but I have seen him. They have been asking for open neuro people in terms of like getting example data sets to play with and things like that. So
yeah, it looks really good. I've got 2 students who are going to do it, and I'm going to kind of drop in and check out. I've looked at the syllabus. It looks pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Physiologically oriented stuff and ML oriented stuff.
Yeah,
which is the right mix.
That's what I should have said. Is that it's got a heavy. I mean, one of the funny Twitter posts on it was like, "Oh, it looks like everything except neuroscience is going to be covered." That was somebody being snarky.
It's even got neural mass modeling in it. I checked.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Meat fields is on the list.
Conrad had I'm not sure I can reference the time correctly, but it feels like it was a couple months ago, but it could have been a lot longer. But he had a poster like, has neural mass modeling does it have any victories? Has it
really
changed? Yeah.
This is like a Twitter post. Okay, all right, I need to go back and check this then. Was there a long discussion?
Well, there definitely. Like if anything, it was useful for the discussion it engendered, yeah. So I'd be curious too. Right. Yeah, I was I was wondering what people might think of. I think there was some early stuff from DCM for ERPs on mismatch negativity.
Yep.
And that actually referenced some like earlier work from maybe Finland. These were generator like DCM seemed to they had some findings and it related back to some good neuroscience.
Yeah, funnily enough, I've been doing some deep diving on the old literature on this week for various reasons, and you go back to like Freeman stuff from the 70s,
Yeah,
and Lopez de Silva is this kind of classic paper from 1974, and honestly, like it's as good as anything you'll read from the last 10 years.
Sure.
Both the theory and the ideas and the expression. But then you have these cute like sentences, like the opening sentence of the paper was, there has been considerable interest recently in studying like neural systems using computers. Like, it's that early. Like, oh, we just invented computers, and now we're like doing simulations of analog circuits, and that's like the background. That's where we're at in technology. I love it when you have a little kind of opening phrase like that. Really sets the scene.
That's classic.
Another one, sorry, just because another one, by the way, is like there's this paper, and they've got like a picture in it of an analog simulation that they've done. So it's actually like it's basically an equivalent current circuit of the wiring diagram that's used to simulate a cortical column. They have like an analog circuit and actually built it as like a little box with dials on. And they've got a picture in the paper, and it's like about like a square foot box. Like this is like the analog computational model they're using to like simulate these oscillations. It's hilarious.
That's awesome. I'd love a link on that.
Yeah, I'll add a few.
Cool. Yeah, so that would be. I mean, yeah, I guess I'm not surprised you've got a couple. I mean, this is his syllabus is something. Now, Toronto is going to still have a summer school, or what happened to that? Sorry.
Yeah, there's two things happening. Yeah, we're doing a KCNI summer school. So that's the institute that I'm in, the Krembil Center for Neuroinformatics.
Right. Is it still happening?
Still happening. 6th to 10th of July. If you Google KCNI or just look for kcnischool.com, I think, then there's a website up, and there's some kind of Twitter posts out as well. So there's still spots if people want to sign up, and that's basically a combination of, essentially it's like computational genomics, neuroimaging, and computational neuroscience in the as applied to mental health and kind of problems around the neurophysiology of major depressive disorder in particular. So we're doing a week-long summer school that's kind of trying to really pull together scientific fields in quite an ambitious way.
Has stopped.
Okay.
And that's still open to applicants if anyone wants to jump in. We're still accepting people.
And there's you can't be too old, can you?
Oh, no. I'm pretty sure we're
that's awesome. So you're going to be covering genomics as well.
Yeah. Well, so half of the activity at our center is it's kind of genes to cells and genes to regional gene expression patterns and stuff along those lines, and the relation of that to epidemiological and population genetics. And then the other half, like broadly speaking, is computational models of neural circuits at micro and meso and macro scales. So really, like that's the two slices of thing that are being covered and we kind of stitched the two together. So you have like genes mapping to cellular properties, then cellular properties mapping to circuit mechanisms. And I'm kind of fall into the circuit mechanisms side of things, but it's kind of an integrated vision of multi-scale computational neuroscience is what we're trying to pull together.
No, that's awesome. I mean, and it's also, you know, I mean, I don't know how much it was driven by this, but you know, this is the new RDoC kind of paradigm where we're supposed to be integrating across scales and across, you know, across traditionally separate fields.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yep.
I mean, yeah. So let me also a little bit more, or certainly sooner, that is coming is the NiLearn Dev Days. And I posted this on, I actually put this in the NEARS room just because part of this is, you know, NIS stats got merged apparently with NeurotechX in terms of, you know, fMRI first level processing in Python. And that seemed just a little bit more, you know, NEARS related. But Kyle had a question in terms of like how much NeurotechX M&E, you know, bridging has been done. And so I didn't think there was much, except, I mean, and, you know, did a little digging, and it was what you'd expect, which is that, of course, you know, M&E will bring in structural MRI data, and it will sometimes use NeurotechX, some NeurotechX routines for doing that. So some of the like simulated dipole examples that I saw were like a mix of M&E and NeurotechX, but in terms of like, I mean, I still think that MOAB is in some ways our NeurotechX of electrophys, you know, and certainly it is in the, you know, perhaps most important sense, in that like it's the only thing that goes out and tries to bring in a bunch of benchmark data so that you can actually, you know, get a better sense of something, as opposed to just you know, this is what I get with my data, which is, you know, what most papers are, but doesn't work very well in terms of speaking to generalizability and things like that. Anyway, there's definitely a lot more news, but I want to introduce, so shifting gears, I want to introduce Mayank Jain, and I am hoping that, is that a good time?
Hello?
Hiya.
Can you guys see me?
Not,
sorry.
I can, yeah, there you are.
Okay. Yeah.
Hiya. So would you mind introducing yourself and then tell us what you've got today?
Yeah. So I'm a 17-year-old high school student, and I'm really passionate about neurotechnology. I've been involved in it for the last 2 years, been making a whole bunch of projects. So yeah, thanks to NeurotechX, I'm going to be presenting today about the work I've done over the last 2 years, and then leading into what I'm working on right now. So I'll share my screen for the slides.
Okay, I recognize that device.
Yeah, so you guys can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I got involved with neurotechnology about 2 years ago when I went to this hackathon called Hack the Hammer. So this was my second hackathon. I hadn't really done too many, and they were giving out this hardware called the Myo armband. So I realized it's not really EEG, but it is still kind of that biosignal area. So I got really interested in this EMG armband because they told me, oh, we can measure the electrical signals in your arm. And I just found that really interesting because I've never worked with anything like that before. And I was also really interested in video games at the time. So me and my team, we built this video game that you play using this EMG armband. So for those of you who don't know what the armband is, it's the Myo armband. It has these sensors. If you look at my arm, it's got these sensors. Each brick is one electrode, and it can measure the electrical signals in your arm, and then it can recognize different gestures. And it also has an accelerometer in it. So what I did is I connected it to this Unity platformer game, and you could play the entire thing just using your arm. So you can use the gyroscope and accelerometer data to move around, and then use different muscle gestures to make the ball jump or reset the calibration. So my team ended up winning a product design award. And the interesting thing was I saw that the first place team walked away with Muse headbands. And that's what I found out about Muse. They said that they were these brainwave sensing headbands. And back then, I didn't even know that reading brainwaves was possible. So at my next hackathon, Hack the Valley, I made sure to look for these Muse headbands. An interesting thing about this hackathon was I was in grade 10 at the time, but this was actually a university-only hackathon. So I walked in and there were like 3,000 people there, all university students. So it was kind of intimidating. But yeah, so I still did my best. I found a team of people, and I decided to take the game I actually built at the previous hackathon and just make it even better. So what we did is we combined it with the Muse headband and the Oculus to make this VR BCI game. So it was the same thing as before, platformer game controlled using the EMG armband. But this time we integrated the Muse headband. We used their SDK that integrated with Unity. And first of all, we made the game virtual reality, so it was a lot more immersive. And we had the Muse headband track your brainwaves while you're playing. And it would measure your alpha levels to see how calm you were. And based on that, it would adjust the speed of the music. Now, it's not something very complicated, but at the time I was really excited just because it was my first time using the Muse headband. And we actually ended up winning a Muse headband for our work. An interesting thing was that they gave us one headband, but we were a team of 4. So my team wanted to sell the headband, but I love the Muse now. I wanted to use it and make new brain-controlled apps. So I reached out to Muse, and they actually ended up giving me an extra 3 headbands for me and my team. My team didn't want the headbands, so I ended up with 3 Muse headbands, which is pretty awesome. Since then, I started making more apps. So this is one of the first apps I made using the Muse headband, which is a brain-controlled snake game. You can see my brother playing it. It's controlled using blinks and jaw clenches, which I guess could technically be considered EMG, but I found it really exciting. It was my first time using it, and I've gone a long way since then. I actually ended up presenting this project at Sick Kids' conference, their Transforming Pediatric Care conference. So that was lots of fun. The next project I made was actually inspired by the show Breaking Bad. There was a scene where they had a mute man who couldn't speak, and their doctor walked in with this table of letters. And every time she was in the right row where the letter, the way he would speak was that he would spell out words. So this doctor would go through each row, and then he would ring his bell when it was on the right row, and then she would go through that row, and he would ring his bell when it was on the right letter. And I thought, why not do this with the Muse headband? So at another hackathon, actually, I made this brain-controlled keyboard. I was really excited at the time because I thought this was something new, but years later, I've actually seen that a lot of people have built this, but I hadn't heard of anyone building it, so I thought it was original. The next project I made was called Intalom. This is one of my favorite projects. So I got more deep into BCI research. I was looking at how you can measure different stats like focus and attention. And then I decided to combine it with something that was of personal significance to me. So as a student, I love listening to music while I'm studying, but I have some people telling me, oh, you shouldn't be listening to music, it ruins your attention. And others say that it helps your attention. So I made this app that measures your focus while you're listening to music and working. So what it'll do is for each song, it'll give it a focus score, and then it'll curate playlists for you to help you focus. So what I did was I took the data from the Muse headband and split it into the different frequency bands, and then just focused on the beta waves, because based on what I'd read, the beta waves were most associated with focus. So the first thing I would do is get a baseline analysis. So what it would do is that it would measure the baseline focus score for a person, just because everyone's EEG data is very different, and so everyone's apparent focus score would be different. The next thing it would do is sample their focus during different music. So what it would do is it would take music from their own playlist and then go through them and assign each one a focus score and then rank them based on which ones help them focus the most. And the idea behind this was, instead of, like, there's some apps out there that generate music that helps you focus, but the benefit of this was supposed to be that you could listen to music that you like and also help you focus. And then, yeah, the third step it would just create this playlist for you. So this is kind of what the dashboard looked like. The idea was you can see your focus level live, see different statistics, and then the top songs that help you focus. So after that, I decided to reach out to more people in the brain-computer interface industry. So I just went on LinkedIn and sort of looked around for people, and actually found, that's how I discovered NeurotechX. I met one person in the Toronto community and another person who ran the U of T chapter. So I got involved with them, and I ended up speaking at the Ontario Showcase. So the Ontario Brain Institute hosted this conference, and I got to present Insalon, the app I just talked about. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot more people in the industry. Since then, I started doing more stuff. I presented at more conferences. This is actually a picture of me with the CEO of Muse on the left, and Jillian Ayre. He's a pop artist. I don't know if you guys know the band Major Lazer, but he's one of the people in that band. Yeah, and this is yet another hackathon, Hack the North, Waterloo's hackathon. This is where I got a lot more better with BCI technology. So I'd taken a break from it for a while, and I went out and learned deep learning and artificial intelligence. And I recreated the algorithm that I used for Insalon and made it even better. So what I did is I collected a whole bunch of focus data on myself, and then trained a deep learning algorithm to identify how focused I was. And I found that this was much more accurate. And at this point, I'd read a lot more papers and found that apparently gamma waves produced a much better result when measuring focus with the Muse headband. So what I did is I collected thousands of data points of me playing chess and various games that require high levels of focus, collected that data, and then just collected data while I was sitting around doing nothing. In this case, I applied it to websites. This application would measure your focus on different websites, so you could see which one was distracting. But the main win here was creating deep learning algorithms to measure focus with EEG technology. This is the dashboard. You can see that, as expected, Facebook and YouTube are producing much lower focus scores versus something like Google Sheets, which is where you tend to be working. So now I'd been really heavily invested in BCI technology, and I thought that it's crazy how the general public isn't really aware of BCIs. And I felt like this is an industry I really want to go into. So I was looking at the current headbands, and I was thinking, like, why aren't consumers using it? And I felt like the two main categories that were important for consumers to use BCI technology were the affordability and comfort. The comfort because people, like, it needs to be, you have to be able to wear it for long periods of time if you're using it for something like the Focus app I was talking about in Salam. And the affordability is important because it's a new technology right now. So people aren't necessarily willing to spend $500 to $1,000 on EEG technology when it's unproven to the general public right now. And so I thought I should create my own headband. And part of this was because Part of this was because I wanted to develop the app I'd made in Talon and actually distribute it to people. But if I used the Muse headband, I found out that one, they shut down their SDK support. Two, apparently they were taking equity in people's companies if they were using the SDK. So I thought this was a great opportunity for me to learn about BCI hardware and potentially create the first headband that can be used by the general public. So I decided to apply it to sleep tech because I actually thought of this idea about a month before Muse released their Muse S, but I still went through with it because based on what I've seen, there's only two major people in the space right now, which are Dream and Muse S. Dream's great because you can use it all night long. It measures your sleep cycles, but it's much more expensive and it's more for people who have actual sleep disabilities. And the Muse S is something you just wear like in the moments before you sleep, not really all night long. So I went out, started making my own headset. This is me with the first prototype. You can see the electrodes might look a bit weird. That's because they're actually pennies. So I had to go out and look for electrodes, and I found that these electrodes, they're not reusable. So I need to find good reusable electrodes, but most of them were really expensive and taking a really long time to ship. So I found out that these pennies are actually made of zinc. So I sanded off the bottom of these pennies and just use that and they actually work. So the way I tested it is I plugged it in as an auxiliary electrode into the Muse headband, and it was able to produce pretty good EEG data. Before this, actually, it's a funny story. Oh, sorry. Someone saying something?
No. Please continue.
Oh, yeah. So before I used these pennies, I was trying to create my own silver electrodes. So my chemistry teacher had a whole bunch of silver powder left over from various experiments she'd done over the years that she gave to me. And I went down to U of T's lab, and I was in the process of trying to find a blowtorch in a facility to melt down that powder and create my own electrodes. But unfortunately, COVID struck around that time, so couldn't go into any public labs or areas to melt them. So ended up making these copper ones, which I'm using for now. But sorry, yeah, I talked about this as silver powder. I reached out to Iden, and they're going to be sending me some of their prototype electrodes, and I think these are actually perfect for what I'm trying to do. So I'm excited to get the BCI hardware ready by the time that I get these new electrodes. So here's actually some of the FFT data, the 4-year data I've gotten from my EEG headband. So right now, it doesn't quite look right. So the way, let me explain how you can see if it's right. So if you look at the 60 hertz area, so the x-axis is the hertz, and then the y-axis is the power. So right now, I haven't put any filtering on the EEG, so there should be a huge spike around 60 because all the electrical noise from the circuitry in our walls, the AC current like that you use for your plugs, that runs at 60 hertz. So there'll be a huge spike there because there's tons of electrical noise from that. So I intentionally didn't filter that out right now, just so I know that the headband is picking up the right data. Right now, I suspect the reason this isn't looking right is because I'm using an Arduino, and the way it works is you get the analog signal from your brain, and then you have to convert it into a digital signal for the computer to process. And the Arduino has a 10-bit analog sensor, which means it can detect like 2 to the power of 10 bits of data. That's a resolution of the data that it measures. So I've gotten another microcontroller that has a 12-bit resolution, and I suspect that'll be better because based on the tutorials I've seen online, they all use the microphone jack, and that has a 16-bit resolution. And that's the only difference I can see between the circuits I'm making and the circuits that they're making. So yeah, this is a lot of fun because I actually had to go online and learn a whole bunch of electrical engineering stuff that I didn't know before. But yeah, it's been a really interesting journey.
Hey Mayank, do you use a 3-electrode system, or is it just a bipolar system, or do you have a ground as well?
Okay, yeah. So actually, at first I was using a ground, but then I was looking online. I've actually looked through some of the open source schematics. So like I looked at open EEG schematics and open BCI schematics, and based on what I saw, it looked like they didn't need a ground electrode. So they had the circuitry in place, but it wasn't plugged in because they didn't see any significant improvement in data. So since then, I've changed it from, I've just unplugged the ground electrode for now, and it doesn't seem to be any worse.
And so you just have a bipolar circuit. You're measuring the voltage across.
Yeah.
And have you looked at the circuitry in the Muse, which is called like a driven right leg circuit?
Yeah, so that's what I had before.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I had before. So once I get a better resolution on it, I'm going to be trying both. But I'm pretty sure the Open BCI has a driven right leg in it, but it's not being used based on the schematic I've seen. I may be wrong, but
it's used in a weird way. It's kind of a unintuitive circuit because it's it's kind of I forget the DRL circuit, but maybe someone can bring it up. But it has a weird connection. And the other question I had, it's good to try to measure the line noise as your kind of ground truth. But another really easy thing to do that we did when we were developing hardware is to look for the EKG.
Oh yeah, so that's actually my next slide. Not EKG, but EMG. So, yeah. So just to make sure, again, just as a prototyping test, I connected these electrodes to my arm, and I was able to get EMG signals. So that way I know it's not picking up just noise, it is able to pick up biosignals.
You can certainly see the low bit right there.
Yeah. So this is 10 bits, I believe. Yeah, it's 10 bits for the Arduino. And I have another microcontroller that has 12 bits, so that should be a bit better.
But it looks like you only have 3 different values on that signal, and you should have kind of 10 million or something. So why is there such a limited range of possible values?
Oh, and that's been converted into volts.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess I'm still seeing only like 3 different possible values. So I would wonder if it's not only a bit depth problem and it's something else, because you should see a little more resolution. I guess you might be saturating the bit depth on either side of that. So I guess you want to like attenuate your signal because it's outside the range of your A to D converter.
Yeah, I could try amplifying it more, and that might help.
No, the opposite. Turn it down.
Oh, turn it down.
Yeah, put a resistor in the middle. So, because it looks like you might be clipping the peaks and the troughs. Are you doing this live right now? No.
No, this is a GIF.
I thought you were just like very.
No. But yeah, so this is just a test I did to make sure it's working. I'll definitely try that out. I'll try reducing the amplification and see if that helps. But yeah, so just in general, like my goal for this whole project is to bring BCIs to the general public, because this is where I feel BCIs is right now, right? When computers were invented, a lot of researchers had access to them. But like the public couldn't access them because 1, they were expensive. 2, everything was in the command line. The user interfaces just weren't ready for people. And I feel like I want to bring the home computer of BCIs, like the first BCI that consumers feel is comfortable. They feel that they can go out and wear in public, and it's just really user friendly.
Oh, that was the best Mac.
Exactly, that's my goal for BCIs.
I was feeling
point to it, say that was the best BCI.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I'm curious, like you mentioned sleep. So what are the applications do you see when it comes to applying your BCI to sleep?
Yeah, so there's I actually forgot to mention this. There's this paper where they were able to measure the different sleep cycles using just one channel.
At MIT, you mean like MIT group?
I don't think it was MIT. I think it was from Europe. I don't exactly remember, but they were able to detect different sleep stages with like about 90% accuracy using a single channel. So that's there's the three stages, like level 1, level 2, level 3 sleep, and then REM sleep. So the idea is to be able to measure how your quality of sleep, because that way it makes it like people can start to do biohacking. Like, oh, but for certain people, maybe eating before they sleep helps them sleep. For others, they may not, just because everyone's body is totally different. And one other idea I had was to create an alarm clock based around this quality of sleep. Because what I've experienced is sometimes I can get 4 hours of sleep, but it's a very good 4 hours, and I'll have more energy than sometimes when I sleep 8 hours, just because of quality of sleep. So just a hypothesis I had would be, it would be interesting if you had an alarm clock that woke you up once you get a certain amount of quality of sleep versus quantity.
Yeah, I see. In terms of sleep cycles, though, there are a much more simple way to measure. I mean, even with your like bracelet that they have, or like, so they measure the blood flow with infrared light, and that helps in measuring the sleep cycles. But for some reason, like in these fit trackers, they don't use the smart alarm function. Like I was wearing Fitbit, and it can show you the statistics of your sleep stages. But for some reason, they just don't want to implement the smart alarm function. And there are like forums with hundreds of messages like for request of this function. But for some reason, it's like, is it like patented or something? They just don't do it.
Yeah.
They're just proxies, though, the actigraphy-based sleep stage measures. And I haven't dug into this in a lot of detail. It's on my to-do list, but like the kind of ground truth. Well, ultimately, the ground truth, like science doesn't fully understand yet, but the benchmark ground truth as far as sleep staging goes is EEG signals, and the actigraphy sleep. The wrist-based actigraphy sleep stage tracking tools there, how well do we do in reproducing the classifications that you get from polysomnography on concurrently recorded sleep data, right? Sleep EEG. And one thing that I am kind of curious about is how well that works in highly fragmented and disrupted sleep, because there must be some kind of template, or either explicitly or implicitly, that your kind of actigraphy based sleep staging algorithms are using, that are kind of expecting there to be a certain set of sequences and a certain trajectory over the course of a night's sleep. So it's kind of like a reservation I have about, well, anyway, that would be what you would get over and above a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or whatever, or a Ring based sleep stage tracking. Is if you're doing it with EEG, then you're like genuinely measuring the brain activity that, as far as we know, is the closest thing we have for like ground truth on sleep stages.
Yeah, definitely. The closer you got to the source, the more accurate it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Did anyone have any other questions?
Oh, have you also thought about like, if you are going to use it during the sleep, that the person moves during the sleep, so there are a lot of artifacts, and so it has to be like you really need to take into account this factor.
Yeah, so I don't think people move around that much, but just because someone's sleeping for a long period of time, you could always just have the software ignore that portion of time when they're moving, right? So you can have an accelerometer in the headband, and if it detects a large amount of movement, it can just ignore that small portion of data. And because they're sleeping for like, 6 or 7 hours, you'll still have like plenty of data to analyze.
And what's your plan for the form factor? I guess this is always my question.
Form factor. So I was thinking of making it like a sports headband. So similar to the Muse S, but without a big patch on the front. So my main criteria is I want it to be something that doesn't look like an EEG headband. It should just look like a regular headband. and I feel
And-
that's possible.
The patch, you mean the electronics module that
Yeah,
attaches?
electronics module. I still have to look into how to make it washable because I know that will be an issue. But right now, I'm more concerned about learning to make the EEG, and then I can worry a bit more about those specifics of the form factor later.
I think part of their reasoning for making it modular like that was that the soft side could be disposable.
Yeah, I looked into that, and it's actually it's smart because they can their idea was they can take out that module and then plug it into other clothing as well.
Oh yeah, cool.
So yeah, these are all things I do need to look into.
Yeah, cool.
So there's some other things worth checking out in terms of the form factor and the kind of broader usage plan. So I just put 2 links in there, like 2 things that I'm like loosely familiar with. There's this company called Cerebra that have a really clunky device that is, I don't know what, how much money they're making from it, but it's a product that I believe is getting used in I think kind of in the clinical domain quite a lot. So I think it's something like eight wired headbands, eight wired electrodes, and a box, and then the box kind of, it transmits wirelessly to the cloud, to their cloud services, and they have like what they do is they provide a sleep quality reports to either to the individuals or to the clinicians or the people who are like running clinical trials. And so the point is, like, in the case of the Cerebra device, they're not doing particularly well on the form factor. I think it's reasonable to say it's nothing special, at least. But they have some other smart stuff that they've maybe focused a little bit more on, which is like the what you do when you get the data, right? So they've done a good job of like packaging the service of getting the data into the cloud, doing their kind of cloud analysis, and then getting a kind of digestible report to the people who want to see it. The other one that I put in the chat there is the Philips one, and the Philips device it's a little bit like an emotive, I guess, or what was the guys we had on last time from New York?
The Neurosity.
Neurosity, yeah. So the Philips device is a little bit like a Neurosity kind of montage, isn't it? That one's got a little bit more form factor. I don't know so much about the details, but I think they have a similar kind of app-based like report model. So yeah, just kind of reference points there. I think it's useful to think about what you want to do, what you might do with the data, or what kind of where it might fit in to the user's kind of activities, and what type of service you think you could. There's more than just the device, right? There's a lot of there's a broader kind of space of like what. And Interaxon are doing something slightly different, right? They have their app that kind of it's in like the wellness space. It's not in the clinical sleep domain. It's like those 2 that I just listed are. So they're doing something slightly different, and I think it's worth kind of just checking out the different variants of what people are doing and having a think about where you might fit in.
Yeah, I think certainly one thing is that is really impressive. Really impressive work. So many hackathons.
Very busy.
Yeah, and have you looked at Dimitri's free EEG32 board? I know it's like a different project, but have you checked out what Dimitri's doing?
I've heard of something called the 32 EEG board. I've looked at so many open source ones, I can't quite remember. That name rings a bell.
Okay. I can put in a link in a minute, just in terms of Dimitri's GitHub. Did you catch Bernard presenting his 3D printed kind of headset material?
No, I didn't.
So that's like a flexible open BCI.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I want to say we've recorded that, Alex. Does that sound right? So we've got at least Bernard's presentation. Okay. I mean, yeah. So I mean, sometimes Dimitri joins us, but I hate to put him on the spot because it's like Moscow time is like this is not good for Moscow. But he does join us. He and Andre always join the Paris Hack Night, which is if you're free, you're on the East Coast like at noon on Monday. You can join Paris and you can talk with Dimitri and Bernard about see their work, because I think there's a lot to be said for. I mean, it's like it's so impressive how much you've done, and in all aspects, right? Like you're full stack here. But there's something to be said for like building on top of a lot of circuitry that has been tested out, and like what you'd be able to bring to that. I'm sure would be valuable, and it might solve some of the problems you're having too, right? Or certainly it would be more people that you could be interacting with and learning from. Because I think in particular it's a project that others could build on top.
Yeah. So my main objective with it wasn't necessarily to build the best EEG headband. It was that if anything else, I can just learn about the circuitry, right? So if I go and talk to like Dimitri, I have an understanding of the circuitry and we can speak on the same level.
Yeah, no, I and again, the pennies for electrodes. I mean, I love that.
I mean, it works.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't surprise us that works, right? I mean, when you consider like what Hans Berger had access to in the 20s, right? It's like, yeah, but still cool to see. It's super impressive. Okay, and so I gave people a link to your website with the, as part of the agenda. Does that have links to GitHub or, what kind of
mainly it's articles and videos of the projects.
Gotcha.
There's a whole bunch of stuff for like, even like beyond neurotech, there's some stuff on like deep learning, augmented reality, a whole bunch of emerging tech stuff. Cool.
And okay, well, so I mean, at this point, do you have code that you are interested in sharing, or is that?
I could look through my code and like put something together. Yeah.
That was more just to make sure I'm not missing something that we can be, helping advertise.
No, like nothing.
Okay.
Just my website. It's got all my projects.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So, any more questions?
Hey, so do you plan on moving from the Arduino to your own chipset and A to D chip, or?
Not right now. So I have another microcontroller. They have a high resolution.
That's you said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. What's that microcontroller called?
Let me find the name. It's some microcontroller I got off Amazon.
Cool. That's good. And the electrodes. What were those electrodes made of?
Zinc.
No, the company that was going to send you there.
I think that's proprietary. Like, I actually don't know what they're made of.
They look like Jello.
I think they have some sort of gel. Like that was their IP, what they made of.
Where are they based?
Switzerland.
Okay, yeah, he's that's what I thought. He's joined us previous Hack Nights. Yeah. That I'm interested because he's making those to be Open BCI compatible, right?
Yeah, OpenBCI sells them on their store too.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I found the name, Kyle. It's called ESP32.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
Great.
And that's what Josh is using for the Arduino.
Yeah, that's great. And then you're gonna, I guess your goal, you're not like, I don't have a product oriented focus. You're just trying to get something that's working for yourself. So you're not necessarily planning out the full stack.
Yeah, right now I'm just prototyping. I'll figure out what the product, like I know I'm not going to be using a microcontroller for the actual product. It's probably going to be some sort of other chipset.
Yeah, I guess I like to ask because I really think that the interface of the electrodes and the force of them against the head is like the make or break of some of these devices.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of thought of later in the process for some people. We should get more like clothing manufacturers on this call.
Yeah, as soon as I get like the basic EEG data working, I'm going to be working on the form factor.
Cool.
Yeah, that was. I mean, we did get a good sense from AJ at Neurosity of all the different headset designs. So, did you catch that one?
No, I missed that one.
Okay. So again, good reason to check the YouTube. He's got some. He's got this one collage of like 40 different headsets designs that he went through.
Yeah. Another idea I had for a form factor that I'm not going through with it anymore was to have like a clip you could put on your headphones. So I know there's companies that make EEG headphones, but I thought it doesn't make sense. Like if you're trying to do EEG, it doesn't make sense because then you have to focus on sound quality, and that's something you don't want to do, especially if someone has like professional headphones or like Beats or something like that they like using. Now they have to switch to your sound quality. So I thought it'd be interesting if you could make this sort of EEG device that clips onto your existing headphones instead of holding headphones.
Yeah. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the data quality on those is all right. Like you've assessed it.
Yeah.
Really?
There's a weird artifact sometimes, but yeah, we got better spectra out of the glasses.
Whoa.
Interesting.
Are they and all the connectivity, are they like compatible with all of the devices and the streaming?
You can use it with EEG, EDU, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll buy some.
It's still too good to be true. You can't.
Oh, no way. Oh my God.
And you can't take them apart because the electronics are molded into the plastic.
Really?
You'll be have them in like 30 years. All right, well, gap in the market there.
Yeah, that could be interesting too. I'm going to look into that.
Yeah,
There's a company in Toronto that's making F-Near glasses.
yeah, the blueberry.
Yeah, the blueberry. So it would be interesting if you made like an EEG F-Near hybrid with glasses, because I've seen the way it works, and it would work with the Smith glasses that he just showed. Yeah, and then you have companies like North making AR glasses. So maybe in the future.
That's something you could think about, right? Is go talk to John at Blueberry and say you'd be interested in adding some EEG to their device.
Yeah,
they're just like working on the FNIRs. I'm pretty sure they're pretty busy just doing that. But ultimately, that would be what you'd want, right? You'd want to have both on the same device, and you can get that would be like a genuinely useful thing to do. That could definitely go somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely know what you're talking about. I don't know anybody who's had one.
This person looks like they're using it. Wow, that is not the right price point for. They're trying to sell it to labs. Look at this shielding cap. That's the way to do it. A Faraday cage for your head.
I've never seen this before.
It's not a bad idea. maybe work with the OPMs.
Yeah, those OPMs apparently need that. Oh, protected. Okay. Oh, let's guess. Unami.
Friend.
That's awesome, Alex. Though I had never seen those from you. I mean, that's awesome.
I don't even think the students believe me when I demo them that they're EEG glasses.
Yeah.
I would wear them every day if they had my prescription.
So wait, you've got a pair too.
I have a pair, yeah.
Gotcha.
You can prep them in and get your prescription in them.
Yeah. Oh, here they are, right here.
Oh my god, that would be awesome. Yeah, you could. You just ask them; they'll just cut the lens to the glasses.
They have a really weird connection. They have a super weird charger that like clips on right here, which I don't know where that is.
Oh dear.
And Yeah, so you have to like do this 3 times to turn them on. So it's kind of like you're in the 80s.
Is that what you literally have to do, or does it
Yeah.
just work the first time?
No, yeah, I don't know. Oh, you guys want to see the whole?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Bet your brainwaves look really cool.
I bet Graham Moffat has like 10 of these.
Because that's how cool Graham is.
Smith didn't do anything with it though. That's the funny part.
Now I want to find my charger.
Yeah, you need that.
I feel like, yeah, it's like, oh, I want to go back through my old EEG systems and crack some of them open again. Come a long way. The fact that this is old now. Because now we have these fancy. I have this one that's like a prototype from the factory.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nicer. It's like easier to put on, and it's like sleeker behind the ears, and the data's pretty good from it as well. But yeah, this one's weird. It has like the PPEs coming.
Oh.
Coming. That's why they sent me that one. My student was working there as an intern at the time. John. Man, that was really, really cool.
Yeah. Super impressive.
Oh, yeah, so there's one other thing I didn't show. I made this controller that I don't know if you guys know the game Fireboy and Water Girl. It's this online game where you can have 2 people play this platformer game together. I created this app, this like a Python script that connects your EEG headband and controls your keyboard. And so you can have 2 people connect their Muse headbands and play the game together.
Cool. On the same computer? Like they both connect to one computer?
Yeah, because you can have Muse Direct connect multiple headbands.
Awesome.
And then it just streams it over.
Again.
So guys, what do you think about kernel?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, are we pivoting? So yeah, we can.
I didn't know that I already had a company, Neuroscience as a Service, and then I was offering that to granting agencies.
I think I offered mine out for free.
Let me. Yeah, or if somebody's got the link. I mean, it's not. It's not what I thought they were going to pivot to.
Yeah, but it's good, right?
I mean, if they're, I mean, especially good if they're building, you know, a better OPM system, or getting into nears, just like in some fashion, like Facebook. You know, I think that could be, you know, really awesome for the field.
So how new is this news? Because the last I checked, I heard, which I think was like a year ago, was kernel were shrouded in mystery.
Right.
And
Well,
what they were doing. So when did this reveal come through?
Well, I mean, I only got multiple people asking me about it this week.
Okay, so it is new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 3 days ago. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Glad to hear that.
And you know, I think it was,
they redesigned everything. Like they were super secret, and now their website is changed. Like Brian Johnson on LinkedIn, he's now posting all over the place, and the guys from the company, they are also posting. Like some of them, yeah, like so they are doing their marketing campaign, and like taking into account that Elon Musk went on Joe Rogan yesterday and talked about Neuralink. So, and plus BCI 101. So this week is like Neurotech week all the way.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, I just want to like echo. I mean, I'm super buzzed as someone who's like loosely in the MEG field, and OPMs is already kind of a bit of an adrenaline injection in MEG in the last few years. But having a big Silicon Valley company kind of pushing it forward, I mean, I'm delighted.
I mean, again, like, I mean, I hate these announcements because it's like what I want to see is a lot more detail, but that's actually pretty. I mean, from what I've seen from, like looking at Nottingham system or, UCL system and now Virginia Tech's, I mean, it looks awesome.
Yeah.
These are the optodes, I think. Wow.
Right. Yeah, it looks more kind of put together than any of the images I've seen from Matt Brooks talks or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, from my perspective, if this was a professor that this was their lab, that they just were a new professor, they did like a year or two's work in their lab. They bought 2 systems, an FNIR system and an MEG system, and they hired a couple PhDs and they did a couple experiments. And then instead of even having to publish those, they just made a blog.
Yeah.
And they made an audacious plan for how they would make their own version of those 2 research equipments. And I think that's really cool. That seems to be like the strategy.
Oh, so that this isn't something that they built. This is just...
Yeah, they have a lot of engineering already, but no hardware. But all the data up here in experiments is from research grade systems.
Oh, right. I thought this was all from some like completely bottom-up new thing that they built that they give the specs.
Are you sure? Like I thought that they built it themselves.
They have been building them themselves, but they must have spent the first year like doing the best neuroscience they could do with the cutting edge equipment. So they bought like I think 30 OPMs or like they.
Okay.
And but then the lower half of that document is all the hardware specs and the R&D process, or the public side of it that they're
right.
They're doing some cool stuff.
Out the top half.
They're doing time of flight optical imaging.
Yeah.
And so you can measure depth a little better. You could measure the fast signal with that technique as well. So if that does prove to be fruitful, it'll work. And it's kind of weird that they're doing 2 different things. That's like a weird thing.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of still a weird announcement in the sense that like, so they're a device company, I mean, and certainly like there was no talk of stimulation.
And what did you know about them before, Morgan?
Well, just in terms of so the guy who started I don't want to say started, but he kind of started the San Francisco chapter, or certainly like the precursor of the chapter was this cognitive technologies group at Berkeley. And so he was there. I think he was like an early hire as their recruiter. I mean, we should get somebody like Marion or maybe even John, John Nolte, who I don't think is on today, but
tell us the history.
Well, that might, he certainly can tell you more, like, because John was a student at Berkeley then, he definitely knew Stephen better. But I also, I was catching Brian Johnson speaking at like Viva Tech in Paris, I think that was 2016, if not 2017. And, there was a lot of generalized, a lot of like marketing speak, but he was certainly early on selling a story of more implant and more, an implant that did stimulation, right? So
the earlier version of the kernel website, it had a bunch of kind of lofty, very vague stuff that was about kind of the operating system of the mind, and it kind of interfacing with the brain at a information processing level and things like that. That would lead you to think that they were doing some kind of stimulation oriented stuff, but it was like it wasn't clear exactly how they thought they would achieve what they were kind of describing vaguely. And it sounds like they've definitely pivoted off that, but that's what it was when I looked at this a year ago. I also have funnily enough, I have an email from Brian Johnson because I was putting together these profiles for the Neurotechnology Primer book, and I had a list of people to contact, and I got this email. Hi John, it's nice to hear from you. Basically, there was like there was two people who were working for him who were like really positive. They're like, yeah, we'll talk to you. We'll set this interview. We're like back and forth for a while, and then they both left. They just stopped replying, and then eventually I got this email from Brian Johnson. Hi, these people have left the company. We're not going to do any press for a year as we prepare to go to market. This was 5th July 2009.
Oh, you knew this whole time.
Well, I didn't know what they were going to do. They were just being really kind of really mysterious about it.
Back then was when, like RAM was coming out, like that the right kind of closed loop stimulation in the hippocampus could have some sort of memory improvement, and these kind of like implant devices seemed to be just a question of perhaps miniaturization and getting them in the right spots, right? Which is definitely what you see with Neuralink. But I think it's it's silly to try and guess at all the factors that would have gone into their decisions in terms of what's a business plan. And
it's funny that it completely echoes the Neuralink kind of development, right? Which was, there was all this fuss about Neuralink, and then they kind of came out with their stuff, and they were doing like fancy Utah arrays, which was cool. And as far as I understand, they have like high quality implanted electrodes, and the miniaturizing stuff may be a bit better than the nearest competition, but it's not like a fundamentally different technology. They're just doing it in a fancy way, and probably kind of like with a massive price tag on it. And that's kind of seems like maybe, so the downs, the like I said, I'm really buzzed that Kernel are doing MEG. But on the other hand, like what are they going to be doing with that? Is it going to be a really kind of high price point Versace MEG system that isn't is like slightly better than the OPMs you can get from the guys in London, or what?
Didn't Neuralink couldn't Neuralink write to the brain too?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what does that mean? You can stimulate the brain, and maybe you can have some kind of like closed loop like learning paradigm, like brain IO is
I mean, so you know, if you look at the people working for Neuralink, you can kind of guess what they're playing at. But yeah, I mean, and so certainly to get a loop back to BCI 101, you know, Mikhail Lebedev was speaking today, you know, had what is, you know, really the research basis of a lot of Neuralink, which is the kind of experimental monkey work that Flip Sabies has been doing at UCSF. It very much parallel to, you know, what's been going on at Duke, and I guess Mikhail's moved to Moscow. Yeah, it's definitely not like a brain IO. Very, very task oriented, very, you know, very motor, or certainly like, you know, again, like the kind of research work that they're building on is, you know, very motor oriented, and, you know, either trying to parallel motor action or, you know, decode motor action. Yeah, and this is well, I mean, I guess I'm less surprised by the optical or the NIRS in this, just in the sense that, like, I was also surprised to see Facebook doing, you know, having such a kind of high-end NIRS system in terms of what's the guy's name? It's like Mark begins with CH. I'm blanking on his particular name, but they you know, he had some press that, like, in March, and they had pictures of their optical equipment. It looks a lot like kernels.
Seems like the strategy is that, yeah, I guess I get that idea. Let's buy the best equipment in the world. Let's show it off to our investors so we look like, you know, like we're in Star Wars. And then we'll leverage that for the next funding round as we kind of hone in on a MVP.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, the other thing I was going to say is that, like, most of this work is all being, you know, government funded, but from the Brain Initiative, right? Certainly a lot of the Bay Area research groups are all part of the Brain Initiative, you know, and you're basically looking at spin-offs from Berkeley, spin-offs from Stanford, like, you know, and they've maybe moved into SBIR funding. I mean, like, it's a remarkable amount of government funded research that is going into this effort.
It's the military industrial complex, Morgan. We all know that.
I love their pitch that, like, our team of PhDs can design and run experiments for you. Like, that, does that mean that I could just pay them to do my job now?
Right.
When they get our grant money?
I would give them the grant money if I could just, like, funnel it through them, and I'll do something else.
I don't know if you caught, like, a lot of the you know, Allen Center, you know, because, like, Allen Center is trying to, you know, pitch itself as, like, we'll do your experiments, you know, like, and again, it's sort of with this, you know, very, very rational pitch of, like, there are very few sites that have as many toys and with, like, the kind of infrastructure that we have.
Yeah, like, Alan are more like, they want the international neuroscience community to tell them what they think are the most important pieces of science to be done.
Yes.
And they're offering the service of doing that, and they're kind of taking pitches from people. It's a slightly different kind of flavor to it than a kind of commercial service.
Yeah, no.
A million miles away, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Kind of like me starting a company that I'll go on jogs for you. Like, yeah, I'll go on a jog for you anytime you pay me. Because like the science is the action of doing science. How can you pay someone to do the science for you?
It's like Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency, you know, the digital monks that believe for you.
I mean, the only way I could see them like doing research for people is if it was like a company that has nothing to do with neuroscience. It's like maybe it's like a marketing company that wants to see like the effects of different ads in the brain or something like that.
Yeah, like there are certain applications where you outsource part of your research. Like you might outsource your genetics, or you might outsource your subject recruitment. But I like the idea of outsourcing the design, like the whole, just outsource everything. Just tell them that you want to do research, and they'll do it.
Yeah. What do you think of this? These demo applications of music. I mean, is this are they? Because he is LA based. Like,
You mean the movie? That it's on a different page, isn't it? Oh, you mean those things that halfway down? Okay.
yeah, I mean, so this kernel sound ID, you know, I mean, to Mayank, or I forget who said, you know, like in terms of like, is this a neuromarketing angle in terms of selling it as a service? You know, there is definitely still some Hollywood money, and for this kind of, you know, neural based, what works, what doesn't. I mean, it's somewhat related to what's the Nielsen. So Nielsen, who does the ratings, you know, have quite a lot of PhDs working on new Nielsen boxes and things like that. I mean, just, you know, if we're guessing, I'm not sure. I mean, also, I think it's an easy regressor to also put in and get a demo.
Yeah. Elon Musk, by the way, so in yesterday's podcast with Joe Rogan, when he asked about your Neuralink, he put a time frame of 5 to 10 maximum years for telepathy, and he was like with serious face.
Okay, get your tinfoil hats on, kids. Jeez.
Yeah, like with serious face. Yeah.
Said that?
Sorry, did you say 5 to 10 years for telepathy?
Exactly.
But
yes,
he also
yes.
couldn't pronounce his own child's name.
You can.
Yeah, and they like discussed what would be the consequences of that, but he was like very serious. Like,
Was
yeah.
he smoking a joint?
Not this time. Yeah.
And did he give any other insight into the progress?
Well, no. Yeah, he just described, basically elaborated on the presentation they did in July. He just did it in words, and basically, like Joe Rogan was interested in more layman things, like okay, what would be the, like, how do you actually do it? What parts of the brain are involved, and how, like, merging with AI, all of that. So it mostly was not a very scientific talk. But when he said, like, so what do you think about the like the deadline? What do you see it will be changing? And he said, like, okay, so we will in the course of the next year we will implant that into a human being. And when he talked, like when Joe Rogan asked him, okay, what do you think about telepathy and all of that, connections, and he's like, says, yeah, it will be like 5 years if everything it goes great. 10 years is like maximum.
He's got the process down to pat now. Elon Musk. He's like promised the world in like the next 5 days. and then just carry on doing that and see if no one notices 5 years old.
I mean, wasn't it how EEG was discovered at the end? Somebody tried to
Yes,
make
exactly.
a telepathy mechanism device,
Yes.
and then who knows? Maybe this enterprise discovers something else serendipitously.
It's
Yeah.
closing the loop. Yes.
Berger had an accident where he he fell off a horse or something, and nearly died.
Yes.
And his sister kind of had some his sister in some other place in some other town, like freaked out at exactly the time that he nearly got killed, and this motivated his entire medical career. Was he thought there was some kind of mysterious energy that she'd sensed that was related to his near-death incident.
Some Jungian reminiscence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does occur. But the guy himself, he to discard the EEG, he's like ended up being Nazi, and his son like went to war, died. So it's like interesting story.
Hans Berger.
Yeah.
He killed himself in the end.
Yes, and he and his son, they have a sad story, but they like basically like gave birth to BCI.
Mhm.
So yeah, by the way, regarding the kernel and like what we are doing like with the BCI 101, we actually trying to involve him on the week 3. Like there are conversations, like Yannick currently is in discussions with him, so he might very well be joining the week 3 as in the format of interview, and there will be like a chat rolling on the background. So yeah, if we can pull it off, would be great.
Well
You
done.
talking about Brian?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Yannick is in discussions with him.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I wanted to. I realize there's a lot of people not from San Francisco, but yeah, we're looking for we're looking to nominate interesting companies for BCI 101 next week. I think it's Thursday, and so I mean, I'm just going to pass these on to Matvey and Ilya, but I'd love to get more. Love to hear what other people think in terms of what would be companies that that we could add to a list that maybe they haven't heard of.
I know a couple.
Okay. Well, is it on the list? Or
Yeah, I'm in touch with Sophie
with
actually. Yeah, I'm in touch with Sophie in London, and I'm communicating with her. I don't know who makes the decision though.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure either, and so certainly they were asking for San Francisco-based ones, and for us to reach out to Kernel and Neuralink and people with various Zuckerberg affiliated research projects.
Facebook is joining week 3, like it's confirmed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But so again, like with Facebook in particular, it's super. It's good to know like which bit of Facebook, because there's like, I mean, is is it Facebook Reality Labs, or is it some of the kind of Zuckerberg philanthropies? Because I'm just curious of like whether it'll be the NEARS or whether it be the. Sorry, is this all in the? Is this already on their BCI 101 agenda?
No, actually, like since it's in discussion internally, the actual companies, they are not on the website for now, just not to create any like
Sure.
misunderstanding. Yeah.
Totally. So anyway, if people have I mean, I thought that the kernel engineer in London, what's his name? I need to look it up, but he did an interview that Yannick and I caught a couple weeks ago in Symbio Beta. But I thought he had a lot of good points when we heard him talk, and together with Matt Engel at Paradromics. Mm-hmm. But I thought what Paradromics really gave you was that kind of that brain initiative backstory of spinning off of research groups and also being, I liked it in the sense of like being very tied in with, chip manufacture in Silicon Valley, right? Which certainly a lot of these companies have been, pushing appropriately. Yeah. So definitely we'll pass those on, or sounds like Slava, you could pass on if anybody's got more suggestions. I'm looking for
definitely. Yeah.
I'm looking for ones in particular in San Francisco.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Neuralink will be fine. Like we're okay with Neuralink.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely, or I know the people that I know people that would be interested to talk maybe about their research work that predates Neuralink. Or that would seem less controversial than trying to get them to actually represent Neuralink. But I don't know. Sounds like Yannick's on it. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just adding to our notes.
I just looked at the kernel site, but they're only hiring one position right now. You'd think that they would have a hiring push rate as they released that. I thought that's what Neuralink did.
Well, I mean,
yep, that's why they did it.
I think
that's why they did their notes.
I think that's the point of like rolling this out as a service as opposed to as a company. Like they don't seem to be going into production as much as it just seems like a way to kind of fund what their first.
Yeah, that was their first paper.
Yeah, and so I think maybe like if there's one position you're looking at essentially just attrition or, at reaching some sort of 1.0 milestone, maybe somebody moved on to something else. And, whereas like Neuralink definitely seemed to be like doubling down, and you could see that in terms of where they were getting, research space and getting animal facilities and, all of that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I saw UCSF people changing their LinkedIn to being Neuralink. So I mean, it's like I think like you saw on Joe Rogan, like he's if nothing aggressive. Yeah. But as far as I know, they've still not rolled out full automatic drive on their Teslas. But
yeah. like the only company that is currently right now like is doing something in the background, and like the open water. That's the hope. Yes.
And so, did you saw the stuff that they released a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, like the updates on the website. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
they released some stuff.
yeah, they some images. You know, and she was on Facebook answering questions for a little bit. You know, like I made a comment and she got back to, you know, she answered in like a couple minutes, right? And I mean, she quite rightfully said like, well, we're all on hold in lockdown, right? So, you know, but I did think she was saying something like, well, we can't look at stroke because you need to catch blood flow. And of course, I'd say you don't really, you know, it would be enough to just image stroke. Yeah. That's,
acute stroke. Well, no, actually, no. Acute stroke, you're just looking at perfusion. Well, it's not. It's not.
I mean,
no.
And like the super, you know, because certainly stroke was the big market that electrical geodesics, you know, was trying to stake out for a long time in terms of EIT, right? And so all you're trying to get is the you know, is it a hemorrhagic stroke or not? I mean, like if you're going to put devices in an ambulance and you can like get that to the, you know, answer that question in, you know, like minutes.
Really? That's what they were trying to do? Okay. How did that go?
Well, so it'd be fine whether there were any ambulances that wanted to buy a 128 channel EEG system. Like,
Wow.
Very, very nice, Carl. Very nice.
Pretty cool. Yeah, Graham set this up before he left the company for us. But it's really promising. The neurologists think it's promising, and then we in Alberta have a stroke ambulance because we have to get up north, and there's no CT scanner. So they have like an ambulance that will leave Edmonton and race as fast as it can for 6 hours.
oh
And
wow!
the goal is to get this on that ambulance to try to measure really acutely.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we were going full, you know, full imaging with 128 256, but you could, you know, you could put it in an ambulance, right? And you know, you could have a story that this could happen like without getting to the hospital. And then they would know whether they could give you a drug that, you know, potentially could save your life.
Yeah, I have a good humbling story that my aunt had a brain injury like 30 years ago, and she's been living with that ever since. And she was at my house a couple of years ago and stopped talking. And we were like, okay, that's confusing. And then she was like, kind of like, didn't let us stop her, got in her car, left and drove and hit something, and no one got hurt. And she had a seizure then. And my wife and I are both neuroscientists, and we had EEG systems in the house, and we know how to use them. We have software to pull up the EEG right away, and like looking back that day, we felt so helpless, and like that after all we've learned, we're so far away still from even helping our own family members. Like we thought she was probably having a stroke, seizure, and we should have just put something on and measured it quickly.
Yeah.
And if we have stuff here to measure heart rate and blood pressure, but there's not like a quick, hey, is my brain working right now?
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really cool study because, you know, I do lots of collaborations, and 1 in 10 of them turns out useful, and a lot of them are like a lot of work up front, and then the kind of peters out, and doesn't work out. And then sometimes you get like amazing. We were seeing those results in the first couple subjects too. So it was exciting and promising. Because I also have made in all my press releases as a professor and as a student, I always tried to make the point of not bringing up when they say, what's the purpose of your research? I never said anything medical, because I wanted there to be other purposes for EEG besides medical. And this was my first kind of like helping people in a hospital.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's sorry, it's time to shout outside for healthcare workers. Yeah. So I don't know if you can hear. Well, terrific. It's 8:00. It is normally the time that we would turn to John and put him on the hot seat and say, "Hey, well, I mean, so let me change the subject to last week and what we talked about with Open BCI, and Joe coming to talk about some sort of challenge this summer, and integrating Jaden's work into the EEG notebooks, and not to just put you on the spot about how's the big refactor, but I don't feel like I didn't because of internet problems, that in addition to our Zoom bombing, what did we have any action items from that? And are there what can we do to keep some momentum with Joe?
Yeah, good question. I mean, just to your first question that you kind of pivoted off, what any updates? This is kind of a small thing, but I also like it. By the way, there's a lot of rubbish on this link, but I figured out a Sphinx Gallery documentation that I kind of modified from the FOOF one. So that link is basically the kind of working one, and it still has a lot of the FOOF stuff in it. But Sphinx Gallery documentation is really nice because it auto builds your tutorials and all of your notebooks and stuff from code, and it gives you like fancy so this is like this week's update. If you want an update, is I've done a first attempt at the kind of alternative way of doing the documentation, and part of that, as an aside, if you click on examples on that link, I did a logo. Yeah, just because I needed it for these examples, but there you go. There's a logo. Yes. It's this is literally ripping off the Jupiter logo, so it's probably like a copyright infringement. You see, it's like an EEG cap with a little spiky nose on the front.
John, can you show us what the back side of those kind of notebooks would look like, or like how easy it is to make these kind of things?
Yeah. So I think I'll just give you another link.
Yeah, that's what. Just sending code is probably the easiest way to communicate that information.
But so I've got like a temporary repository. I'm actually right now I'm just putting this stuff into the
That's nice that you waited for Tom Donahue to like figure out the perfect way to make documentation, and then
he just did an update. It was like I don't know, like a week ago or something. There was this big FOOF, update, no, but I tried the M&E and the Nylon, or at least the M&E gallery and the Sphinx Gallery example, and they all have these like Mojave and PyQt dependencies, and I just couldn't get any of that to work. But I said, okay, let's see who else has got something like a decent version of this. And the Foof one is really nice, and no MyRV, no PyQt, like hooray. So I just borrowed it from that. So my kind of job on this now is just getting all of the Foof stuff out, which, as you see from that example, is kind of still working on, and putting in. But the difference now is that the notebooks get compiled from text code, right? So the Sphinx Gallery build thing, it actually like auto builds both the documentation pages, but also an IPyNB file and a .py file from the source. And so that's like by far a better way of managing a kind of multi-contributor source code base.
So when I'm looking at the MNE tutorials, they're probably doing the same thing, that they're pulling those tutorials automatically into their online tutorials.
Yeah, they're auto built. I think with MNE they even have it like Circle CI, auto built, which maybe we'll get to at some point, but it's not like super necessary. You can just build it locally and push. I'm being slow in finding the thing that you asked for, but I have got it here. This one, yeah, okay. So if I just give you this link here. Oh, what's this?
Watching people copy and paste is a great. They should just have like an hour-long footage of people doing this activity.
Right. So I just put a link in for to a GitHub page. So that's like the source thing for, and then if you go to the kind of the documentation thing, and it's in examples, and down at the bottom, N170 analysis only, and then that one's built from this file. Now,
that's what the MNE looks like too. That's really cool. Okay, that's great. You don't have to edit two things every time you build.
Say again?
You don't have to edit two different things every time you make changes to the code.
Exactly right. Yep. And there's things that I haven't quite figured out, like this needs to have images in, and there's like the text output. And what we need is to kind of skip cells, right? Because with the EEG notebooks, we've got some parts of the notebooks that are kind of connecting to the device. So it depends on how ambitious you are with like the auto build of this documentation. And I think you can have like various levels of reproducing everything every time you build it, or just reproducing certain things. But anything that's kind of analysis of data, well, those things, in principle, you could just like rerun the script and generate the figure and all of that. But the things that involve connecting to the device, you can't do that as part of the documentation build thing. So we need to kind of exclude part of it and include other parts. So that's another thing that kind of needs figuring out.
What my brother would do is he would just make a little fake data source that it connects to.
Oh yeah.
But he's a wizard.
Yeah, that might be. I think I'd rather just kind of not. I mean, the easy answer to that is, and I think I'm going to do this anyway, is have example. I mean, you can see it in the example there. It's analysis only. So this one is like, it's just taking in the data and doing the analysis. It's the second half of the M170 notebook, basically.
I like separating them.
And yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, like, part of the pitch of the notebooks is like one location, one notebook, do your whole experiment. But there's various reasons why that is not a good way to organize certain things. So yeah, I think there's going to be kind of a set of examples that are of the type analysis only and don't involve data acquisition, and then other ones that are data acquisition, including ones. And I guess also the experiment testing ones would be a third type. So a set of examples that are kind of testing the PsychoPy functions. Those wouldn't exactly build into documentation in quite the same way. I was thinking maybe we should have some GIFs or something to demonstrate what you would see if you were running this on PsychoPy when you're looking at a documentation page in the browser. So just the various things on this front. It's very rough at this point, but I have like I think I figured out like the hard things in a way of like how to do it, and I was just like stripping stuff out and putting stuff in. And this will go in the refactor branch. And the nice thing is that I can push it to a site from anywhere. So there's the way you build it is you just kind of go in and you do like make install, and that in the make file that it builds the HTML and it pushes to GH pages. Mm-hmm. So that means that I can, like in principle, and probably will do this, can actually have a documentation site that's kind of coming off the new refactor branch, and it could be live, even though it kind of pertains to the new version, and then it'll only link to it from prescribed areas, but there's no need to wait to have this roll out. Can have like the GH pages thing live for the new branch, even before the new branch gets merged into the master. But that's a little way off yet. So if this isn't, in reasonably good shape by, a month's time, then give me a kick up the ass, because that'll be a shoddy job on my part.
I'll put a calendar.
Yeah, please do. Please bug me about it. If it's like, John, did you just drop this? That would be kind of poor form.
Okay, it's a Sunday. I'll wait till the Monday after the Sunday.
All right, thanks, Kyle.
Wow, this is great.
This would be the Inquisition on Thursday night. That's when you should ask me.
Yeah.
So what were the other? Yeah, why don't we resume the questions you had before, Morgan?
Sure. So, right. So going back to Joe visiting last week and talking about like, hey, we've got this open BCI marketing money, and no conferences, or the June conference in Belgium is canceled. So what would be a good way to use both potentially their install base, or this opens up the notebooks and the kind of data collection to a lot more people who have this hardware. I still think in short term, I love what we can do to incorporate Jaden's work, and do that as part of this refactor, because that would make sense. Plus,
well, there's two things, right? There's the competition idea, and then there's any dev we need to do before that or in preparation for that. And I guess those are like two separate things that we don't want to kind of mix together. And I think we didn't really get very far in that discussion, did we? I guess kind of something to iterate on.
Yeah, it's certainly not. Some of it was like it was the first time he was bringing this up.
Yeah,
right? And so that's cool. It is another. It's a good question of how quickly do you think we could be doing something in terms of like we would obviously, or it seemed like we were sure it would be EEG notebooks collecting data from OpenBCI hardware.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So that does,
and
that does
could
mean that
could be done without a refactor. In the sense of like it could be done the same way that DBG is kind of is semi a fork, right?
Yeah.
And in the sense of like it doesn't need to, push you to go faster or to, like we don't actually have people working on this full time. And
you mean just use Jaden's code for it?
Jaden's got, he's got a project. He could be managing pull requests to, his project, get something out that OpenBCI is kind of marketing to their install base, and it's done in conjunction with NeurotechX in the sense of like it's also got our users, and we can be talking about kind of the larger, what kind of data could we collect, or what kind of I wasn't quite sure, this is where I think he legitimately didn't, wasn't sure what to push, but I selfishly like the idea of us being able to collect a lot of data from a lot of people, because nobody can leave their house, right? And but I know that the June that particular hackathon was definitely focused on a very BCI, how can we help need knowers, and and the people who were going to show up in Belgium are available to answer questions and talk about what they would like to see. So
I like the idea of letting. I like your new. I like that you just had that idea that the two branches might be separate for a little while to see what it is people want to do in the OpenBCI one, and then maybe if it might go off in a completely different direction. If we try to pull it into this ecosystem, maybe none of the developers that have OpenBCI care about P3 or N170 experiments.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's useful for like P300 spellers and things like that, but I would kind of hope that that's not what we would be doing,
I like Kyle's suggestion of the split hemifield visual paradigm. Like I took a look at that as well, and it's nice.
Does it work?
It's like two gratings, left-right gratings.
Does it run?
The PsychoPy one ran.
Good.
I didn't get any. I haven't tested it in terms of getting data.
Yeah, my MacBook, like I think it's the TK egg back end. It makes my MacBook just shut off.
Oh yeah, you've got to no, it'll shut off. Yeah, you've got to have you done this?
I have fixed it in another project now this week. So now looking back at that, it was very frustrating. It's a very hard thing to debug because it keeps shutting off your computer.
It just totally crashes, like logs you out. Do you get that? Anyway, I tried that on my wife's laptop, and I thought I fixed it with your Matplotlib RC.
Yeah, that's how I fixed mine. Or I make sure I force it to use something else at the beginning.
Yeah. Because if you echo that and you're getting Mac OS, then I will get a catastrophic failure.
Right.
It's like it somehow crashes.
It makes you feel like you should just like close the computer and go do something else. It just shuts everything that you were doing off.
Yeah.
You know what? For the first time ever in my life, I'm tempted to get a Mac just so I can work on these like debugging issues. With
do you want me to send you like a MacBook Air? Yeah, I think that would be good for you to have one, and you can.
Yeah. It feels like a bit of a handicap with this project actually. Same with the OpenBCI. When we kind of bring that in, I'm gonna have to get one of those as well.
Yeah, like if I'm making stuff for the Mac, it's good to have someone else that at least runs it somewhere else that's not my computer.
Right. Yeah. No. Okay. I'll look into that seriously then. Probably the time is right.
Well, I mean, I have been. I mean, I said I was going to do that, and I did.
Yeah, thank you. No, and when we made them to deploy onto 4 other laptops. So like we've installed it on 4 other machines, and it works well.
Okay.
But I haven't thought about it for a couple of years.
So there were 2. There were, I think, 2 things I remember from the discussion last time that sounded like good ideas. There was like I said, I like the visual hemifield experiment, and Kyle also had this idea of like making who's got the best brain or who can make the best data kind of competition, right? So there's the competition side of that. There are different things, right? There's anything to do with Open BCI Extra Dev, which I agree that I think we can probably say either we just use Jaden's code base, or if a working version is merged in time, then the primary, but like one of those 2, and that's an independent thing that is what it is, right? And then like what are we going to do, as in choose an experiment, and then there's how do we kind of pitch it in terms of the competition component, and that was there was some nice ideas on that as well. I think get who can give the best brain response or do the best classification of their own data.
Hey John, I was thinking that I still have difficulties in following what you guys are discussing, because you're deep in the weeds with the project, and
sure,
it's not that I don't know the project. I've been looking around serendipitously in the EEG notebooks here and there, but I still have difficulties in following what you guys are saying, and it's on me. But I was wondering if it makes sense, to have a presentation or very, very high level presentation about, the mechanics of the project and the goals.
Yeah, 100%. Good idea.
Well, so for sure, I can ask Joe to, give us what relevant slides of what he presented. If I remember right, his slides were kind of focused on the overview of, history of OpenBCI, the company.
Sorry, Chris, do you mean that you want more of a background on the EEG notebooks and the...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I didn't explain it myself. I was following what John was saying, so implicitly deriving from the previous discourse, but then the conversation went into how to use it for the OpenBCI marketing initiative. By the way, there is a BitBrain marketing initiative, because all the companies that wanted to go to Brussels, they have this extra marketing money, and Mark Mento, who is in Boston, told me that they would be interested in doing something. And at the time, I didn't have the presence of spirit to tell him, hey, why don't you do something with NeurotechX and so on? But I know for sure it will be down.
Maybe we could do both.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be at the same time. It certainly is a good idea to present it at the same time that the BCI conference would have been, which is, aggregate, expectations. But, I just put it on the table.
Is the BitBrain is supported with BrainFlow, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of would fit.
Or is
it's the other way around. One is BitBrain, the other is BrainBit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, sorry.
Go on. It's a company in Barcelona, or Zaragoza, something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's BrainBit. BrainBit is the one that's supported with BrainFlow.
You know, I mean, the other thing that Jaden added is, I mean, not Jade, I should say, the other thing that Andre added that is now available via the BrainFlow API is unicorn support. So GTech, you know, so you can collect from the you know, consumer GTech amp as well.
I noticed one thing in BrainFlow, so maybe they made a fourth effect, but it was taking off the real-time loop cycle to do real-time analysis, and I don't understand the mechanism now to, you know, sticking your real-time functions to do online analysis. And then he was referring to BrainDoro and not really to BrainFlow, but I don't know if the two projects are merged now.
Well, so but Chris, what did you think we needed a bit of a presentation of? The EEG notebooks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but I don't know if it's of interest or general interest. Would be interesting for me.
I think I mean, certainly I did want to, you know, I mean, partly for, you know, newcomers who might be in the meeting, and partly for people on YouTube that would also be, you know, new. Well, so, this is a good chance. Hey, is there anybody who is here for first time and would like to introduce themselves? Sorry, I forgot to.
Ashley's here.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi there.
I'm here for the first time.
Okay. And yes, would you like to say what you're interested in neuroscience?
I guess sleep for now. Yeah. I study neuroscience, actually. I'm a neuroscientist, but more of a biologist. I'm Kyle Mathewson's wife.
Yes.
And he just flipped the laptop on me. So.
Nice to meet you.
We appreciate you stepping up, and yeah. And so when you say more biologist, so working in animal systems, I mean model systems, or?
Yeah. I study metabolism and sleep.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now.
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys are doing cool stuff, though.
How your wireless probe?
Oh yeah, we use wireless EEG and wireless metabolic sensors in the brain. A lot.
When you say metabolic sensors, what's that involve?
They're like enzyme-coded probes that you drop into the tissue, and they're coded like for lactate oxidase for studying lactate, or there's ones for glutamate. I forget what they're coded in. Glucose. I think they have acetylcholine, dopamine.
What's the sampling rate?
They're 1 millisecond. Yeah, 1,000.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot better than the people who do, you know, magnetic resonance spectroscopy trying to look at similar things.
Yeah, I did that for a while, and it was really frustrating. That was like
Enough said. Enough said.
Sampling.
Much more interesting. Cool. Well, thank you. And we
that goes in a human. Like, how can you put one up the nose that would measure?
Yeah, Ryan was always trying to use Earth's magnetic field.
No, I don't mean for the MRI, but for the wireless probe. Could you put an enzyme-coated probe up someone's nose and measure?
Yeah, I think people are actually doing it in the eye, like on a contact lens would be
interesting.
Yeah,
but
but it's not brain. Yeah, that would be more just like blood monitoring of glucose for like diabetics and stuff instead of.
Okay.
blood probing. But yeah, brain.
Or an implant, like if they're putting some implants in people in 10 years so we can all be telepathic.
The enzymes wear out really fast, I guess. That's the downside.
Elon Musk said that was happening, so.
Yeah, he really made it seem so real.
Well, if Elon Musk says it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
I'm Joe Rogan, of course, where all science comes out first.
I just figured that would make hallucinations more than anything. If you had that many electrodes implanted and he could control them and you could feed into them, and I think you'd be more hallucinating things after a while.
Well, maybe that'd be a selling point.
Maybe, yeah, you're right, actually. The new drug dealers, neuro drugs.
Oh, Claire, you might have met John before in Toronto. He lives in Toronto. Claire's in Toronto.
You're kind of pixelated right now. It's like really, really crude features until you have a beard.
Crude, don't say their features.
No,
are
like
crude.
it's crude and not like
I have a crude face.
There's not like I don't have high beauty.
I have crude features. Crude facial features.
I came out here and
man.
Claire had locked the Roomba into this part of our house so that it was.
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
It would only clean a part of our house, so I figured she needed to talk to a human.
Yeah, that's funny. Well,
Hi, sorry, I think I was muted when I tried to say hi earlier.
yeah, please, if you could introduce yourself and tell us what you're interested in.
So my name is Ash. Ironically, actually, it's Ash. So where did I start? Where did I end up? I met Chris, and he invited me out, and been kind of missing the live version a little bit over COVID time, but my my interest I guess started probably on the first Muse, and I just got into developer mode and I started putting some of that data together. Then I put it with a bunch of other biometric devices, started mapping out different brain states, that kind of thing. And at the same time, I was getting very interested in biohacking and flow states. So that kind of went into like this whole transcranial, I guess it's such a long term. I always screw it up, but hypotrans.
Like kind of like hypofrontality.
It's hypotrans. Trans hypofrontality. It's funny, I actually helped create a channel for it, but I forgot.
Yeah, so this is Nick White joined us from Boston. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I was just part of that discussion when that channel was up and going, and I kind of got deviated away with COVID a little bit, but my idea is to kind of build something like the Muse, but maybe more multifunctional, right? And basically just to explore like what it's going to take to do that. And, obviously I have my own ideas of like what the reality of a consumer version that would actually be adopted would look like, right?
Gotcha. And are you familiar when we're talking about GitHub projects, NeurotechX GitHub projects? Are you familiar with some of those?
I haven't looked at any of them yet, but no, obviously I dig in myself. So yeah, for sure, it'll be interesting to take a look. I just took a look at the things posted today at in today's presentation.
Gotcha. Yeah. So just to Chris's point, I mean, yeah, I don't think there is existing a kind of overview presentation of EEG notebooks, really.
But what we should do is make a recording, like a video tutorial video.
It could be a presentation and in a meeting like today, and either casually speaking about it, or going through the GitHub repo and saying, oh, this function does this and so on. It doesn't have to be formal. I mean, I'd appreciate to know where to look, where to start, what the goal is. For example, for the hackathon, Eureka, or for the Open BCI initiative, or any other initiative that could be popping up.
We need like a historian of the notebooks. What is the provenance of these notebooks? Where did they come from?
Oh wow! It came
what
from
we can do is we can run like a Jupyter hub that people can log into and just kind of collaborate on. Is that what?
What's that?
I don't know if I don't know if I'm kind of jumping ahead, but we can do a Jupyter hub where we can kind of collaborate on like a Neurotech Jupyter hub, right? And like just branch off into different versions if we need to.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate John Nolte's not here today, but yeah, that certainly with the epilepsy challenge, not so much for producing a submission, but just for working with that data and trying to develop some extra functions and tools for others. That's what he set up. I mean, that's what we've got. And certainly with PsychoPy, you can do, or we've talked a little bit about Pavlovia and like making your PsychoPy experiments into web experiments. And actually, I caught about 2 weeks ago. This is what HSC, which Higher School of Economics in Moscow, ran a tutorial on covering, taking your PsychoPy experiment into Pavlovia. So that certainly, kind of relates to what we're talking about with this kind of open BCI. Maybe it would be something of interest with, making your experiments online. But yeah, I know. Sorry.
So are we kind of in a position to close down the options in terms of what we would like to do for this if we were to do it? Because I think although the guy who was talking about it, he was talking about lots of artifact detection things, but I mean, I kind of indicated, like, I think my preference would be to take one of the experiments that we have, let's say in Jaden's tool with its open BCI compatibility, and like package a competition experience or whatever, that's something along the lines of use this tool with your open BCI that you already have on this paradigm, collect a bunch of data, do this classification, and see if you can get the best accuracy, and we'll have a leaderboard or something. And then the winner wins some gear, if that's the idea. Right? I mean, so, and if that's something, if like, that's a kind of concrete possibility anyway. And then the exact paradigm would be one of the ones that we already have, M170, P300, SSVP, or maybe one of the Kyle's other hemifield, left-right visual field things, or the queuing.
Or
right?
we make a simple one that's effective.
Yeah, I think I would opt for M170, P300, or SSVP. And maybe we could say do all of them, or maybe not. Maybe we choose one. So how do people feel? Is that kind of?
I mean, it's great. I feel good about that. It's for me personally, and then I think I'm speaking for a lot of newbies. It would be really great to have a small description of what you just said, and I'm sure I can transcribe it by looking at the YouTube recordings. But if there is anything that I should add, just let me know.
But like it would involve the people, like the competition would be essentially open to people who have an open BCI already, but it would be like, take your open BCI, install Python, install BlueMuse if it's Windows, and then just do all this setup so that you can do the recordings with this tool, and then make a bunch of recordings and do a bunch of analyses. Like that's what we would be telling them that they need to do.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sorry, Kyle.
I was just gonna say, maybe to help Chris, that my understanding is EEG notebooks was made right about when Python notebooks were becoming popular, and people were having a lot of trouble getting Muse LSL to effectively connect to their Muse and to use it as a research tool in their labs. And so I think it was Dano Morrison and Alexander Barchant who, working with someone or for some reason, made the Python notebook, which kind of really streamlined the process of, it was a wrapper on top of Muse LSL that streamlined the ease of connecting from both Windows and then later from Mac OS, after a student in Toronto, Amanda, made some changes. And that's right about when I found it, and I forget how. And then I started using it in my class, and I made one extra experiment or something.
Yeah, so I was working with Dano when so we kind of did that modification together with all the stuff was originally in Muse LSL, and it was Python scripts, and then it was his idea to stick. It was Dano's idea to stick it into notebooks, and split it off from Muse LSL, and have Muse LSL just be the recording component, and then have the experiments in this new repo. So that was when EEG notebooks was born as an entity, but really like the content was already pre-existing in Muse LSL for a few years.
So it's a fork of Muse LSL.
Notebooks, not in notebooks completely. I mean, it was like notebooks for analysis, but it wasn't quite as kind of notebookified, and yeah,
and it has Muse LSL as a sub module, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
But
So
it's a fork of the original. It's not it's not related to that project any longer.
Yeah, it's related. So Muse LSL is a dependency, and Muse LSL doesn't have so all of the kind of the stuff in EEG notebooks used to be in Muse LSL, but now it's not. Now they're separate projects.
Okay.
But Muse LSL is a dependency for the notebooks. So the notebooks is the experiments, and the Muse LSL is the streaming.
And then that is all in the Muse ecosystem. And then recently, Jaden made kind of a port so that you could use the same kind of code with OpenBCI. And the general thing that it does is kind of it connects to the Muse, but it also sets up with experimental paradigms with like PsychoPy, and presents stimuli as if you're doing an experiment in a psychology or neuroscience lab. Save the data, and then right then after you've saved the data, it walks you through an analysis on that data set.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I never looked into Jaden's code, but for connection to the OpenBCI, I always use a filter buffer, which is only used for the transport, right? It doesn't do any real-time processing or offline processing, but it's Python based too. It's Python 3 compatible.
Yeah, the thing that's kind of the USP really of the Muse LSL really, but the combination of the Muse LSL with the way it's used in the library is the way it's combined with the PsychoPy experiments. Because there are a bunch of libraries out there. There's 5-10 different ways of different tools for streaming data, but it's the combination of the triggers stream from a PsychoPy experiment. That's the thing that's kind of somewhat novel, unique, which allows you to do timing-based stimulus presentation experiments, which is more, it's kind of, you need a little bit more that's a little bit more than just having a data stream. That's having two data streams kind of converging.
Gotcha. And that functionality of having the parallel EEG and timestamps recordings, is that already compatible with Jaden's code for OpenBCI too?
Apparently so, yeah.
Awesome.
And I guess that's because they both are using LSL on the back end.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry, John, I didn't mean to leave you out of that history.
I have a very modest role in it. No, it was definitely other people did most stuff, and I just the thing that gave it a like Amanda was working with me on this this Neurobright project, right? And that was when all those Mac kind of fixes came in.
What was
we had a big push. It was funny. It was like 2 years ago or something, or maybe 3 years ago, and it was I don't know, like every Saturday for about 2 months I was down in Quantum Coffee with Dano, and we were kind of sat in the coffee shop with coding with our EEGs on, thinking we were big serious hipsters. But, you know, we got a lot of stuff done.
Hey, you got a good job. You both got good jobs.
True.
So I don't wanted to just show again, just try and relate to the BCI 101 that this is what Mikhail was showing off today. I don't know if everybody can see that. So NFB lab, and it's, let's see, do I have to?
We can see your screen.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to anyway. This is also a oh, it doesn't say that here, but it's an LSL. I don't actually see this as oh yeah, Pi LSL. Yeah. So it's it was Alexei Osadachi. I'm trying to remember where I know him from. Is it possible he was in Richard Leahy's lab? Does that sound right? I will check. Anyway, they were talking about their neurofeedback this week. Yeah. So he was in Richard Leahy's lab like back 15 years ago. Anyway, looks.
I just did confirm that. Yeah, you have a very good memory.
Yeah, it's well, I'm old, but we were working with him back when I was in Greg Simpson's lab. Anyway, looks like a nice project that's also using PyLSL. But
what does it do exactly? Is it got a stimulus presentation stuff?
Yeah, but I think if I'm right, it's not, that's not its biggest. Sorry, I'm not sure. I'm sharing the wrong thing. I'm trying to do tab-based sharing, which is a mistake. But yeah, I'm not seeing if there's any. A lot of ICA. does anybody else use the field trip buffer?
Well, I spoke with Robert. It's not very popular because people don't understand real time in offline analysis and neuroscience, right? So in general, he told me that it's not a very required feature of the field trip toolbox, which is also modular, and you can pick up your module and try apply this kind of modular feature to your analysis. This is not one of the most popular. It's known but not popular. But it compiles for a lot of hardware architectures.
I mean, my guess is that it's heavily focused on the real-time signal processing and very light on kind of experimental integration. But
oh yeah, so what it implements is the transport. So it's a circular buffer at the end of the day, which has the possibility to stick in timestamps with labels. So it's pretty useful and basic.
Well, I don't know. I mean, for those who didn't catch Mikhail's talk today, it was a really interesting run through the history of BCI, going back to with a lot of early Soviet studies mixed in, as well as his long history with this work. But I think, for those of us who are not doing non-human primate stuff, Alexei's stuff was probably the most relevant. And
are these recorded, these sessions?
Yeah. So yeah. I don't know what the turnaround is. I mean, there's a certain amount of processing that goes to getting them up onto YouTube, but maybe this is faster because it was live streamed on YouTube. So then YouTube would keep a copy. Yeah. And again, it was my internet problems. Just I joined the Neurobar conversation afterwards. They split people into breakout rooms of invasive and non-invasive, and I just wasn't able to. Oh, okay.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the third day of the.
Okay, it is already up, and yeah. So looking forward to. I mean, there's somebody's going to be talking about. Let me see if I can. Does anybody have the agenda for next week? Oh, so oh wow, okay, we got 8 minutes. So very cool for the Paris Hack Night. Not this week, but the week after. We have Luke. I forget Luke's last name, but he's the open source ultrasound developer. And you can find his projects on Hackaday, and they are really cool. This is like single channel stuff, and it's like, anyway, he's been working with. I mean, he's got his own Slack channel for those interested, and my daughter is coming in. Yes. Yes, you can have ice cream. Okay, that was easy.
Can I have ice cream?
You can. You get in your own fridge. I'm wondering. I'm planning to get ice cream in 5 minutes. Yeah. So 2 weeks. Luke confirmed that he's got school's technically starting next week. But he said 2 weeks from now, and that's exciting. Ziad, so the Gumpy developer was sick this week and was not able to join us. So I'm not sure whether we'll get him this Monday, but I'm certainly hoping we'll get him back. And Jean has also said she's Jean Rintoul of OpenEIT is. So one, she really got Luke to get back in touch, or got Luke to check his Hackaday messages. Best thing to contact him is on Slack. So it's US Dev, and I think his username is KELU124 on Hackaday. That's coming up. And then, open, the BCI 101 next week. Let me just check my calendar. Are there other good,
Yeah, the agenda lately is quite full.
I
just shared a project that uses the filter buffer for sonification of brain activity. This is a bunch of directories of EEG, brain-computer interface projects, and if you go down and you look inside the EEG synth project, you find the sonification project from Robert Osterfeld.
Oh, okay.
So there are examples of interfacing the filter buffer with devices.
Okay, this is interesting. I'd never actually. Okay.
This is pretty new, right? Or the commits are new. It's like 25 days, 25 days.
Yeah, he's actually touring, all over Europe with former manager of the Beatles, and using this to pop on the head of people and trying to sonify their brain waves. It's not very. Brain waves sonified are not very musical, but they are rhythmic, as we all know.
Yeah, that was one thing about Glass Brain was that it really was an art project in the sense that you had to do a lot of massaging to the EEG data to sonify that and not have it sound discordant. But yeah, that's great. I'm not seeing. Yeah, I think it's like 2 weeks before the NeLearn Dev Days. So I don't know if anybody else has got workshops or maybe seminars that are coming up that be good to catch.
Not just yet. It's June and July are super packed. But next few weeks, not yet. I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw the NeLearn Dev ones as well, and if we're going to sit on those because they have a whole day of how to manage open source projects, and they do that very well.
Definitely.
So I think it's pretty worth hearing what they have to say about that.
Yeah. And Kyle, I tried to address your question from Slack in terms of the earlier, M&E M&E has some examples when they're doing like source localization, where they're pulling in the structural data, and then they might use some NiLearn functions. But like in terms of, you know, how NiLearn is like this, you know, kind of like mix of, you know, NiPy plus scikit-learn. Like I think Moab is you know, kind of like a better, is like, you know, a step in the first step in that kind of direction in terms of like M&E, you know, scikit-learn.
But so NiLearn replaces SPM. Like it's SPM for Python.
Well, so Bertrand Therion at in you know, Neurospin, or you know, the analysis group there, I forget where he is, but they were developing NiStats. Right. And so NiStats was definitely trying to be, it wasn't trying to be SPM, but it was trying to be, you know, what we would just first level fMRI. Right. And
that was originally NiPy. Like the original NiPy library was what became NiStats.
Well,
and
like,
that was supposed to be SPM.
It was
like first level GLM for Python.
Oh,
yeah.
and Ni is neuroimaging or something.
Yeah, and but you know, Matt, like eventually, I mean, like Babel was like enough of a like that ended up being, you know, as well as like supporting DiPy and all those others, and so it wasn't until NiStats started that like somebody was really trying to take all that first level stuff seriously, and or at least that's how I believe it.
It was in like the Neurospin
submodule
of the NiPy library forever. Yeah, it was kind of a mess, really.
Yeah. Well, I think it was like it had previously been like functions that they'd use to get papers out.
Yeah.
You know, and
but I think like the I guess a quick summary of the history really is that certain people, as Morgan said, like Matthew, Brett, and JBP and other people, they kind of got this NiPy thing going, which included a bunch of things, including NiBabel for the I/O and some other projects. But then at the same time, Gael was pushing NiLearn, and they just went.
Yeah.
They just kind of moved super quickly. They got a bunch of useful functionality, and they just built a really effective tool relatively quickly, and just trailblazed over everyone else who was kind of slowly plodding along, doing something similar or kind of doing things that had like overlapping functionality. And NiLearn's kind of just absorbed a lot of the community efforts, and it's not just ML, right? So like the primary kind of, you know, function of NiLearn is like scikit-learn for neuroimaging, but it's really expanded beyond that. It's now like a lot of just generic functionality for Python-based neuroimaging. Like all the visualization stuff is really useful. Just the nifty image manipulations, all of the dataset downloader kind of.
Yeah, so I've been out of that world for a decade. Like that was all FSL stuff back then, and so you can do all that in Python now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so that's certainly what Bertrand was trying to do. You know, was like, you know, whether you wanted to say replace SPM or replace FSL.
Yeah.
You know, you would not need those first level functions that you were using for those tools, because like group stats is like a different problem, right? And yeah, so you know, there's as well as like all the other stuff that they have done in terms of like, you know, registrations needed in other packages, and DiPy has done some great work too, you know, and so it's like it's a well-developed ecosystem now, or you know, it's a well-developed world now where maybe you don't need to leave. And
It's really curious, kind of funny, really, that so now you've got NiLearn and M&E, as you pointed out, kind of relatively non-overlapping magisteria, and they're both developed in Paris, right?
Yeah,
principally.
Yeah, well, and so I mean,
weird.
The one thing I would say is that like you end up with a number of developers that share, like they go to scikit-learn code sprints, you know, and so like they're definitely, and they're drawing on that same community and that same, like, you know, flow of students and, you know, engineers and you know, and it's a pretty cozy world there. But at the same time, like M&E's, you know, basic structures are different. and you know, and it's like, and in some ways there's like a lot of legacy in M&E, you know, even though it's been rewritten in Python. I mean, it's still, you know, they just on Gitter talked about like, hey, maybe we should have the default for the, you know, default or MEG, like, yeah, be
not the you have to say false for MEG, yeah.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah. And it's just like, okay, you know. Oh, we lost you.
Me?
John, you're muted.
That's another of the things that NiLearn, they just okay, we're just gonna do a really decent matplotlib thing, and I mean I've been using those for years now. Like, you know, screw M&E for Surface Viz, basically.
Yeah. And do you know the backstory of VizBrain?
The backstory?
Well, I mean, like who's, like, what was driving VizBrain?
Well, they had something in VizPy for ages. There was a brain plotting example in VizPy.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the developers for VizBrain.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, I'm interested, but I recognize that it's past midnight for you, John, and yeah, it's pumpkin time. So for those that's still with us, thank you so much, and as always, thanks to Kyle and John for the conversation, and Mayank, I think has he might have left, but super impressive, huh? I mean, and you know, I can't imagine. I mean, yeah. I look forward to seeing what that kid does. So I'm glad you guys are, you know, he's heading to Waterloo?
Either Waterloo or U of T, I think is what he said. So
Gotcha.
He's on my radar. Either way.
Yeah. Good.
A general run-of-the-mill 12th grader.
I mean, like, he was doing that 10th grade.
Yeah, it's wild.
Wow. Yeah, thanks. And thanks to Alex, as always, for being our recorder. And, you know, we are working on our kind of security. We're not Twitch live streaming this currently. And we will keep addressing this. You know, I didn't post the password in the meetup. So sorry for everybody who had to get in touch with me directly. But I really didn't want a repeat. And yeah, so I'm definitely taking advice on, you know, better ways for us to manage that. You know, the BCI 101's using Eventbrite, which will then like automatically send out, you can send out the details an hour before. It's like they've got a, you know, built-in kind of trigger mechanism to send those details out. I'm very happy, you know, or if everybody thinks it's fine to just post these things in Slack, And you know, I don't think our Zoom bomber went to that much trouble. Anyway, and yeah, always look at, you know, if there are people who are interested to present projects, please, you know, thank you, Kyle, for kind of introducing or, you know, suggesting this for Mayank.